Hello everyone and welcome to Tools for Non-Physical De-escalation. This is webinar part 1, Recognizing the Potential for Conflict. We're pleased that we have so much interest for this important webinar series, and we thank you for taking the time to join us today. This session is the first of 3 sessions and is focused on recognizing the potential for conflict. My name is Holly Smither and I work in professional practice at RPNAO, and I will be your facilitator for this session. Each session in the series is approximately 45 minutes. So our agenda for today includes what is conflict, recognizing the potential for conflict situations, recognizing nonverbal cues, and recognizing our own behaviors and the importance of our role in conflict. Finally, we'll discuss the importance of emotional intelligence. So what is conflict? The dictionary definition of conflict is a difference that prevents agreement, a disagreement between feelings or ideas. I think that this is really important because we need to understand that our ideas or perceptions can often result in misunderstandings, which may result in conflict. When we use empathy in our approach and try to understand others' perspectives, it can prevent a confrontation. We're going to watch a video to examine the difference between what we perceive to be happening in a situation and what is actually going on behind the surface. So there are times when therapeutic relationships, sometimes we only see a superficial representation of a particular scenario and really don't know the entire story. This is something as healthcare providers that we need to have some awareness about. When we look at violence in healthcare, the 2005 National Survey of the Work and Health of Nurses reported that 34% of nurses had experienced a physical assault and 47% reported experiencing emotional abuse. In long-term care, emergency, and mental health settings, perpetrators are commonly patients or family members, and these incidents are often physical. Whereas colleagues and supervisors are most often responsible for the unacceptable high rate of psychological violence, otherwise known as bullying or horizontal violence. Statistics Canada identified in 2007 that almost 1 in 5 violent incidents in Canada occurred at work. And in 2009, the Ontario Ministry of Labour identified healthcare as an area associated with a higher risk of violence. More specifically, the research has shown that assault rates are more than 10 times those in non-health sectors. Recently, there have been many articles related to violence against nurses in the media, some with serious outcomes for healthcare providers. So understanding why and how conflict develops and learning how to successfully de-escalate a situation are key factors to managing potential conflict situations. Remember, self-awareness is important when managing escalating conflict, and the establishment of mutual goals is the foundation for prevention. So reactions, fight or flight. Everyone reacts differently in a crisis situation. The fight or flight response is a physiological effect that occurs in response to a stressful situation. As a healthcare provider, an effective outcome to a crisis situation comes from optimizing the fight or flight response. The heightened response is exhibited by greater speed, strength, and acuity of senses that produces faster reaction times and allows for a more effective response to the crisis. An ineffective response might occur when a healthcare provider overreacts and creates a heightened state of crisis, or freezes and is unable to react to the situation at all. An ineffective response may also result in healthcare providers saying or doing the wrong thing, which can increase the inappropriate behavior of the person or persons in crisis. Ways to address ineffective responses to conflict situations begin with self-reflection and being aware of situations that trigger ineffective responses. Learning verbal and physical techniques to protect yourself and the person or persons in crisis can help with gaining confidence to deal with crisis situations more effectively. Recognizing the potential for conflict. There are many reasons why behaviors escalate. Most importantly, we need to understand the context in which the conflict occurs. You may not be able to control the precipitating factors, but you can control your own responses to the behaviors. Some of the precipitating factors that we need to be aware of are a lack of control. When someone experiences a lack of control over their situation, they may react in an ineffective flight or fight reaction. Feeling overwhelmed by the situation, a person may begin to feel powerless and may start to lack trust. Often we see this with people who do not trust those in authority. For anyone who has been a patient in a hospital emergency department, not knowing how long you will wait can result in feeling powerless. You often don't know when you will be seen, and you may not know what the process will be. For healthcare providers in the emergency department, we may see this with a loved one overwhelmed by their family member's illness and feeling helpless while they're waiting. This can lead to a response of anger towards the healthcare provider and can appear to be blocking their access to care. Experiencing a loss of dignity or having a lack of self-esteem may also result in a person reacting as a defense mechanism. As an example, to be relieved from our own shame, we try to make others feel the same way. Often, the most effective way for human beings to ward off humiliation is to make others feel humiliated, frequently expressed through anger. When a person is uncertain of the outcome, they may feel completely defeated and alone, and may be reacting to fear. An example of a lack of uncertainty is when a patient is sent for tests and they are awaiting the results. A patient may develop a whole story in their head about what the results of the test are and begin to become anxious, fearful, or angry as a result of not being certain about their results. Feeling defeated may also be a result of a sense of failure and can result in displaced anger while the person struggles with the event that has resulted in the perceived failure. Wanting attention from others may also result in inappropriate attention-seeking behaviors. Some may seek positive attention by creating situations in which they hope to be praised, thanked, or admired, while others will elicit negative attention, perhaps by making a scene in public, getting over indignant about a trivial matter, causing heads to turn. Other psychological or physiological factors potentially leading to conflict can be drug-induced behavior, hunger, pain, insomnia, or mental health crisis. Think about a time when you were tired. Perhaps you worked a night shift and had stayed up all day. By the time you were awake for 24 hours, things you would normally be able to cope with seem monumental. Recognizing nonverbal behaviors. We're going to show you a short video to demonstrate the recognition of behaviors and effective approaches.
The following excerpt is from CPI's Preventive Techniques 2 DVD, featuring strategies and content from CPI's Nonviolent Crisis Intervention Training. This clip is intended to help staff recognize anxiety in clients, patients, or students and respond appropriately to it. Anxiety is demonstrated by a change in a person's behavior. Think for a moment about the people you work with. How do you know when they're anxious? Your responses might have included fidgeting, pacing, rocking, or hand-wringing. Some people withdraw. Others become very talkative. The better you know the people in your care, the more easily you'll be able to identify the way that they behave when they are anxious. Anxiety calls for a supportive response. In order to provide a more supportive staff response, it's helpful to know the person's typical behavior and to know what's important to the individual. Let's see how that might look.
This is just the worst thing that could have happened. I can't believe it. What did I do to deserve this? I'm such an idiot.
I can hardly keep up with what you're saying, Chloe. Something must really be bothering you. Want to talk about it?
Stella always helps me. She's one of the few staff here who understands my issues. Some of the other staff just don't listen. All they want to do is boss me around. I know, they're in charge. I wish they had more Stellas here.
Hey, Anthony, want to give me a hand here? I could use the help. Come on. Sometimes I can distract Anthony. When I take the time to really get to know the client, then I can figure out what's really bothering them. Anthony's not a bad guy. He's just had some tough breaks.
I'm sorry we're taking so long today. We had an emergency earlier. It shouldn't be much longer.
I guess I can wait a little longer. We usually have to wait in this place. I'll give them another 10 minutes. If I'm not called in by then, they're really gonna get a piece of my mind.
Oh my God, what am I going to do? What am I going to do?
I know it's been a rough day, Chloe. I'm here to help in any way I can. I know I can't do that with all clients, but Chloe usually responds well when I give her a supportive touch on the arm.
As you can see from these examples, there are many different ways of being supportive, but there is one common component in many of them, and that is that staff members are keenly aware of their own nonverbal behavior. First, let's take a look at personal space, also referred to as proxemics. Most of us feel uncomfortable when somebody gets too close, but the amount of personal space we need varies from person to person and situation to situation. What's true for almost everyone is that coming too close tends to increase a person's level of anxiety. It might even be perceived as a threat. Respecting an individual's need for personal space might make the difference between a person listening to you or moving into that second defensive behavior level. Maybe you noticed that in one example, the staff person touched the agitated individual. Sometimes appropriate touch can have a calming, comforting effect, but it's a supportive response that should be limited to situations in which you have a strong rapport with the agitated person and are confident that your touch will be received in a positive way. Notice too that sometimes you don't need to say anything. Silence can be a good thing. You just need to take time to listen without comment and without passing judgment. Think about your own experiences. What supportive responses work best with those in your charge?
Let's take another look at the staff members who showed us their supportive responses. You'll notice that in addition to allowing space of about 1 leg length if standing, these staff members avoided a toe-to-toe challenging position. Instead, they stood off to the side. This position is called a supportive stance. A supportive stance reduces the chances that you'll be seen as a threat and also allows you a margin of safety if the other person becomes physically aggressive. Notice that even the staff member who touched her client on the arm approached from the side and avoided quick movements that could be seen as threatening. There's another form of nonverbal behavior that's also important throughout all the crisis development levels. Most of us call it body language, but the more technical term is kinesics. Kinesics includes posture, movement, gestures, and facial expressions. It's important to be aware of your own body language and try not to do things that may appear threatening, such as putting your hands on your hips, rolling your eyes, or shaking your finger. Facial expressions can also communicate anger, disgust, or other emotions that can raise anxiety levels.
So these are some really good examples of recognizing nonverbal behaviors in others as well as yourself and using your understanding of nonverbal behaviors to help prevent a conflict or begin to de-escalate a conflict that's already in process. So not only is the person's nonverbal behavior important, but so is ours as healthcare providers. Our own nonverbal behavior can influence others. For example, in the image shown, the nurse appears to be asking someone to stop and not proceed, maybe for a very rational reason. But this gesture could be perceived negatively. Look at the facial expression, posture, and body language. It is important to have self-awareness about our posture, body language, and facial expression, and to ask ourselves, am I contributing to the escalation of the conflict right now? Our role in de-escalation is to safely approach the management of disruptive, assaultive, or out-of-control behavior. We need to ensure that we react in an effective way to control the situation and support the person to prevent a crisis. To recognize behaviors in ourselves and help others ensure that we can prevent a potential conflict from starting or escalating. Recognizing the importance of our attitude and professionalism when we respond can make the difference in the outcome of a situation. Session 2 focuses more specifically on communication, including nonverbal cues, so you'll get more details in the next video. Nonverbal communication includes personal space. Are you giving enough personal space to someone who might be upset or angry? It also includes posture and body language or motions. Are you more exaggerated in your gestures? Or are you positioning yourself as a barrier, for example, with your arms crossed? Verbal communication includes not only what we say, but how we say it. This is rate. For example, is it fast or slow? It also includes volume, loud or soft, and tone. Let's watch a video on verbal communication that demonstrates what not to do.
Thank you for calling Microsoft Customer Service. My name is Ed. May I have your name, please?
Yes, Christina. Oh, I sure hope you can help me.
Well, Christy, I don't know yet. How may I help you?
This program just isn't working. That's all there is to it. And I'm about ready to pull my hair out.
What exactly are you calling us about?
I'm calling about your product, okay? I'm working on an urgent report and I have no time to waste. I'm getting all these error messages and I don't know what to do about them. Can you help me?
Ma'am, let's slow down first, okay? First, error messages are usually caused by a lack of knowledge on the user's part. Second, I personally probably can't help you with the error messages anyway. And Third, I don't even know if you're entitled to support.
So you're basically telling me that I have no clue what I'm doing and that it's all my own fault, right? Well, let me tell you something. I may not know what I'm doing, but okay, I have to finish the report. Just tell me what I'm supposed to do. What do you need from me to start helping me?
Well, it's about time. Well, I'd say that the first thing I need to know is, and I don't think you're calling the right place anyway, but what are you calling about exactly?
I'm calling about your Adobe Acrobat. I'm trying to get rid of the review comments.
We don't make Adobe Acrobat.
Excuse me?
Note the Adobe in Adobe Acrobat. That's not a Microsoft product. It's made by Adobe.
I thought it was a Microsoft product. Everything else we have here is Microsoft.
Well, yeah, I'm pretty sure. Maybe it's made by Corel or Macromedia or someone else, but I'm pretty sure it's made by Adobe. So you're not even calling the right place.
Oh no, all this for nothing. I have to start all over again. I don't even know who to call. I'll never finish this report on time.
Well, good luck with that. That sounds like you got your work cut out for you.
It seems luck is all I have. Bye.
Thank you for calling Microsoft.
So who's had a customer service call like this? Nearly everyone has, right? As demonstrated in the video, tone is particularly important over the phone when whomever we're communicating with cannot see our nonverbal cues to further understand the bigger picture. Remember, it's not necessarily what we say, but how we deliver the message that's most important. So, emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is the ability to perceive emotions, to access and generate emotions so as to assist thought, to understand emotions and emotional knowledge, and to reflectively regulate emotions so as to promote emotional and intellectual growth. So what does that mean? Well, let's look at emotional intelligence more closely to understand the relevance in recognizing behaviors. Emotional intelligence is a group of competencies that influence the ability to respond to others and manage our own feelings. It is the balance between our rational and emotional reactions. Unlike IQ, emotional intelligence can be learned and transferred into professional behavior. Let's start with the first two EI, or emotional intelligence competencies, self-awareness and self-management. Self-awareness consists of the ability to identify, express, and manage our own feelings. Self-awareness can improve decision-making because you are in tune with how you're feeling. Additionally, self-awareness is a vital part of self-assessment, which can lead to greater self-confidence. Self-awareness means listening to your inner voice and connecting with your heart to ensure you're pursuing the right course of action. Practicing self-awareness can build an individual's self-esteem and confidence. Once we are self-aware, then we can begin to self-manage these behaviors and become more socially aware. The skill of self-management consists of learning to manage your emotions and controlling impulsivity. The three emotions that are most difficult for us to control are typically anger, anxiety, and sadness. When we encounter a difficult emotion, such as anger, it's easy to become overwhelmed and act without thinking. Emotional agitation interferes with our ability to concentrate and make good decisions. By controlling the impulse to react, it results in more emotional stability and greater ability to cope with stress. Let's take a look at an example. When you're exposed to an event, you begin to have an emotional reaction, even before your rational thoughts engage. Imagine being at the park on a beautiful summer evening and you see a fireworks display. Your immediate thoughts are about how beautiful the colors are, and you're flooded with positive thoughts. These thoughts occur before you rationally engage in any kind of behavior. Now let's examine self-regulation. While at the park, you meet a person walking a dog. and you suddenly freeze as it reminds you of a traumatic experience you had with a dog as a child, and now every time you see a dog, you become anxious and react to all dogs as if you're seeing this. Self-awareness begins by recognizing that you are reacting to all dogs as though they are vicious. Once you are aware that this is your response to all dogs, you can then begin to self-manage this behavior. By practicing new emotionally intelligent behaviors, you will eventually begin to respond to situations more effectively. The skill of self-management consists of learning to manage your emotions and controlling impulsivity. When we encounter a difficult emotion, in this example, anxiety or fear induced by seeing a dog, it can easily become overwhelming, and you begin to act without thinking. By focusing on controlling the impulse to react to the dog and the fear, it can result in more emotional stability and better coping. What we then begin to see is the dog as it really appears, not how we initially perceived it. Emotional intelligence at work. Emotional intelligence includes interpersonal and communication skills, and healthcare providers can foster a culture of emotional intelligence in their organizations to promote staff morale, healthy professional and therapeutic relationships, as well as positive outcomes for patients, residents, and families. In healthcare, challenging situations often arise as relationships are strained due to competition for resources, recognition, or opportunity. Yet, the same groups that are engaged in conflict over one issue often must collaborate with each other on other issues. Have you been in a situation where you had an intense emotional reaction and when it was over, thought to yourself, I wish I hadn't said that? I think just about everyone has. Emotional intelligence is a powerful tool for building relationships, and most importantly, perhaps, for repairing damaged relationships with colleagues or patients and families. Components of emotional intelligence. Those skilled at identifying, regulating, understanding, and applying the principles of emotional intelligence are highly successful in communication, managing conflict, and preventing workplace violence. The first component of emotional intelligence is self-awareness, which involves identifying, expressing, and managing your feelings. Self-awareness is a vital part of self-assessment, which leads to greater self-confidence. The next component of self-management, which means managing emotions and preventing yourself from acting without thinking, by controlling emotional impulses, we can communicate more effectively. When we think of managing others in a conflict situation, being able to ensure that we do not react can make a difference. Once you are self-aware and are able to manage your emotions, you then can hone your skills of motivating others. Motivation involves understanding how feelings influence actions and includes how you perceive and react to stress. Empathy is the next emotionally intelligent skill healthcare providers must practice to be able to address social and emotional cues in others. By recognizing the cues that can trigger conflict in others and focusing on safeguarding common goals, you can more effectively communicate and de-escalate a situation. Let's watch the short clip by Brené Brown to understand what empathy is really about.
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, you climb down. I know what it's like down here, and you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no, you want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with at least. And we do it all the time, because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now. I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
How powerful is that? So with empathy, we're able to demonstrate that we understand another person's situation from their perspective. We should also be aware of social skills, as it involves understanding how emotions are contagious and how we can leverage the ripple effect of positive emotions. Have you ever been in a situation where someone starts laughing and suddenly you notice everyone around them, including yourself, is laughing too? This is an example of a positive ripple effect. So think about your own actions in daily practice and remember that we can create positive effects by the way we present ourselves. Any healthcare role can be enhanced by the development of emotional intelligence skills. As healthcare providers work in interprofessional teams to deliver care that meets patients' needs, managing professional relationships with members of the interprofessional team are as important as managing therapeutic relationships with patients and residents and families. When emotional intelligence competencies are ignored, work environments are susceptible to disruptive behavior, including incivility or outright hostility. Additionally, lack of emotional intelligence can be costly for organizations and patients. Poor application of emotional intelligence can harm the organization's reputation, patient care, and even increase staff turnover. Emotional intelligence is one of the most important attributes of leadership, and using emotional intelligence can help healthcare providers improve communication, manage conflict effectively, and build healthy work culture that fosters collaboration. And for any of you that would like to learn more about emotional intelligence, the book Emotional Intelligence by Daniel Goleman is a great place to start. So that concludes part 1 of RPNAO's Tools for Non-Physical De-escalation, Recognizing the Potential for Conflict. Thank you for joining us today, and we hope that this webinar has provided you with a better understanding of the precipitating factors that can trigger potential conflict and how our role in the situation has a great impact on the outcomes. See you next for session 2.